Thank you for your time. All right. Let me start by asking you, Mr. Cyprian, what you, of course, have heavily criticized the declaration of a state of emergency in Rivers State. However, some would look at it and say, you know what, it's within the power of the president to declare such. So, I mean, where does that leave an average observer?
Yeah, let me be very brief and precise. The president have the power under the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, as you all read, Section 305 of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, to declare state of emergency. But they are conditioned precedents to enable that power to become potent and executory. Did not to be done or be left in or effected from a vacuum, or when those conditions haven't been in existence. And as I said in my letter to the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, we all knew him before now as a pro-democracy advocate. It is quite shocking and surprising that the President of Tinubu will indulge into such an unconstitutional activism. And I have said that he shouldn't be blamed because he has the Attorney General of the Federation. And the Attorney General, we all know, a lot of people know him, one of the finest in the Nigerian legal profession. It is quite surprising why he failed to guide the president correctly. The president don't have that power to suspend a democratically elected governor of any state. There is something people need to know about federalism. The president in the system of federalism is not above or not greater than the governor of a state. That is something people need to know about the doctrine and the principles of federalism. The difference is that the president is at the center. Federalism means that different regions or different geographical entities come together and say, let us have a union.
But let's also, I'm sorry to interrupt you, Mr. Cyprian, but let's also look at the peculiarity of the Nigerian system of governance. Some will even trace it back to the origins of its constitution. I mean, you're talking about federalism here, but what we have and the laws that govern, our political life, does it really portray it? Does it lay the foundation for that kind of true federalism? Is that what we are seeing in terms of its structure?
We cannot say we are practicing pseudo federalism. It is not a pseudo federalism. It is true federalism. The problem is people doing the right thing or understanding how to do the right thing and be willing to do the right thing. That is it. It's not there's no problem with Nigerian. People keep talking about Nigerian constitution is defective. Nigerian constitution is not a people-oriented constitution. There is no problem with Nigerian constitution.
You insist. You insist that Nigeria's constitution is perfect. Sorry, you are saying that Nigeria's constitution is perfect. That there is no problem with it.
I won't say perfect. There is no perfect constitution in the whole world.
Okay.
Not even a perfect sacred book like the Quran or the Bible. None of them. Everything. Nothing so perfect in the world. We can only say the creator of the universe, the Almighty God, is perfect. Of course, we haven't even known how perfect it is. So, but we have to take it because it's the creator of the universe, and we believe in the existence. But of course, the nature will tell us that God is in existence. Now, but whether it is perfect or not, it is not a defective constitution, and it's not that so controversial. It's not that so controversial. Look at Section 305 of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. We all can read it. It's very explicit. There's no logical controversy in it. The powers of the president to declare state of emergency have been clearly defined, and the condition precedents are there. And that power does not extend to suspending a democratically elected governor that was elected together the same way he was elected. There is no such power in the Nigerian constitution. Of course, no constitution will ever guarantee that power under a federalist state. There's no such constitution. If there's such constitution, that wouldn't be a good constitution. It would be a bad law. And of course, the court of law will have the duty to set aside, to strike down such provision of the constitution. Because the governor of a state is the representative of the structure, of a substructure of the federation. And they are equal in the eyes of the law. The only difference is that you are in charge of the federal or the entire structure. I'm in charge of this particular unit, which we all agree to come under governance and be together. It is very, very appealing. It's very horrendous. It's very bad and obvious to see this kind of situation. And it's a great threat to democracy.
So I'm still going
now, let me tell you one impact of that. Impact of that action. People will no longer be interested in going to election tribunal. Political gladiators, which I explained to the president in my letter, will just have to do, instead of taking their matter to court when they fail election, will be to create a scenario of conflict, a scenario of pandemonium, to enable president, future president, it might not be Bola Tinubu again, to rely on this president and remove a state government. That is no longer democracy. That is not federalism. All the political characters need to do is to create some problem and cause people to drop bomb here or there. And then you remove a democratically elected government and a democratically elected legislature.
I mean, you've talked about precedents. Yeah, I would pretty much get it, which of course is a very scary scenario you have painted. But let's also look at the role of the judiciary in all of this, in helping matters. You said that Nigeria's constitution is not defective. I'm using your words. And that if applied correctly, it's workable, right? But let's also look at the role of the judiciary in all of this. We saw the AGF justify the actions of Mr. President in Rivers State, right? And even if you look at, aside, the situation in Rivers, you see some of the rulings too of the judiciary on matters that have left Nigerians wondering what exactly is going on here. So my question to you, sir, is this. Is the Nigerian judiciary currently, the current crop that we have, is it helping, the polity of the country? Is it helping situation? Is it helping instability when it comes to the political landscape?
We have to tell ourselves the truth. That is a fundamental problem we have in Nigeria. And recently, it hasn't just said, I used to think that's only Nigeria alone. Even some well-civilized countries have the same problem, and they are solving them. And every country, every society will all have these challenges. That was why we have the principles of separations of power proposed by Montesquieu, the classical philosophers, political philosophers, and legal and political philosophers of the ancient time. Because they knew that human being always wants to be human, will always want to deviate from the position of the law. So by that time, you have the checks and balances. So those problems, there are ways to solve them. Now, one of the key problems in the world today is that we have an extremely cynical view of humans who see power struggle as the greatest achievement in human endeavors. And they also see economic maximization as the greatest achievement in human endeavor. That's where the problem is. So if we say the Nigerian judiciary is good, we will be lying to ourselves. And of course, I want to tell you that the Nigerian judiciary is the central vital forces of all crises in Nigeria. All. When they had the NSAS protest, and folks began to kill police officers, tap them here and there, I said that was wrong. The problem is that the system that is causing the whole problem, that acts as an enabler of police brutality, people didn't address it. That is the judiciary. So the judiciary is the central vital forces of all Nigerian crises. Because when you have a judiciary that adheres to the inner morality of the law, all these problems will not arise. Before someone takes an unconstitutional action or violate a statute, it will start thinking, what are the consequences? What would the court say? So, but there are ways to address those issues. And I clearly, in one of my books, titled Law in Tears, which is expected to be launched by Johns Hopkins University Press, maybe by next quarters of this year. I practically address the contemporary crisis confronting the world's democracy, the rule of law, and found that the judiciary as an institution is the central vital force of this crisis. The judiciary has jettisoned its primary function of being the dispenser of justice and the protector of the people's rights to becoming the enabler and the enhancer of processes that drag the world back to legal, what I call legal nihilism, of the culture of Adolf Hitler and Nazi Germany of the 1930s, when judicial surrender is the primary growth and authority and to other and its function to other arms of government, and in turn affront the inner morality of the law, rather than preserving it. So what follows in this kind of situation is that people in power begin to act devoid of reasonable logic and good conscience, and in disparagement to the rule of law. So we have to hold the judiciary responsible. The citizens can hold the judiciary responsible. There are constructive way of doing that, not by violence.
Well, I think when it comes to the citizens being constructive as regards trying to hold the leaders to account and pressing on their demands, one of such did happen yesterday, which was pockets of protest across different parts of the nation. But I will come back to you. We need to go on a quick break. Once we return, we'll definitely pick up and conclude. Stay with us. Many thanks for staying with us. Of course, it's still Politics HQ on News Central Television. Well, I still have my guest with me. And I mean, just to conclude the program, let me come back to you, Dr. Ekpo. Just quickly, you talked about Nigerians having a constructive way of engaging their rulers, the government, to effect and, of course, affect decisions and policies. Yesterday, we saw protests in many parts of the country, or in some parts of the country. What do you make of protest and how it's being carried out in Nigeria, particularly in contemporary times? 30 seconds.
Protest is one of the measures or one of the means of exercising fundamental human right of freedom of expression when you have grievances. But I don't think that is a more constructive means of changing the system from porous structure, porous effect to the one that is for the betterment of the life of the citizenry. I don't think that the people will have to engage their parliamentarians and then cause them to do necessary amendment to laws. Like we have an issue about the attitude of the Nigerian Supreme Court, which I call the judicial violation of human rights, of not allowing matters to go on the merits, creating and forcing counsel to withdraw appeals, especially in political matters. So those issues can be done by constitutional amendment of an act of the Supreme Court, the Supreme Court Establishment Act. And the people in government may not have the willingness, the political willingness to deal with that. But the citizens can hold them responsible. And if you know that your legislature is not representing you well, what stops you from instituting professional measures of recalling such a legislature? It doesn't take anything much. By the time 1 or 2 or 3 persons are recalled, the other ones will know that they need to do the right thing. Do the amendment to statutes, major amendment to the constitutional provisions, where you see that these are clear problems, and spell out the penalties, and define the consequences. The consequences that affect judges when they don't fail to do the right thing, consequences that affect lawyers when they fail to do the right thing, when they are pursuing injustice, frivolous. Dr.
Ekpo, we really need to go.
Those things can be defined.
All right.
They must start. The Nigeria has gotten to a stage that the citizens have to stand up, constructively help themselves.
All right.
We have come to a conclusion that the aspect of people running to develop countries and all that, you know what is happening in today's world, where people visas have been revoked, permanent residencies permits have been revoked.
We need to go, sir.
Something tells you in mind.
We need to go.
Something to tell you in mind that, yes, something to tell you in mind that we need to work for our country and make it better.
All right.
Because you can't rely on other countries.
All right. Thank you so much for your time on the program today, Dr. Ekpo. It's been a pleasure. Thank you once again.